Well, we've been hearing for days about the importance of wearing a mask to contain the spread of coronavirus. Well, today we have this video of some Oregon State troopers refusing to do so inside a Corvallis coffee shop. Staff say they did remind them of Governor Brown's mask mandate. Now, this happened yesterday, the same day that mandate went into effect. This surveillance video was obtained by the Oregonian who first reported the story early this morning. And in the hours since, we've seen outrage, an apology, and one trooper placed on paid leave. Here's Maggie Vespa.
On day one of Governor Kate Brown's statewide mask mandate, surveillance video shows an Oregon State trooper walking into a Corvallis coffee shop, no mask in sight. The video, turned over to the Oregonian by one of the shop's owners, comes without sound, but an assistant manager at Allen's Coffee and Tea in Corvallis gave his account of what happened next. According to the Oregonian, he told the trooper he needed a mask, to which the trooper replied, "Governor Brown has no authority to take our civil liberties. We aren't going to wear masks." Travis Boss told the Oregonian that trooper then placed his order and said, "F. Kate Brown." Seconds later in the video, you see three more state troopers enter. Boss told the Oregonian they also refused his request to wear masks. He said he was nervous and filled their drink orders even though he had turned other patrons away for doing the same thing. The difference? These guys were in uniform. The incident happened around 8:30 Wednesday morning, hours before Governor Kate Brown gave a press conference about the mask mandate going statewide. To the cameras, she said this.
And today, Oregon, you have a choice that only you can make. What happens next is up to you. It's up to each of us.
After seeing this video, Governor Brown released a statement. It's not nearly as positive. She wrote, "It is inexcusable that a few Oregon State troopers disregarded my face covering requirement yesterday and ignored a request from a fellow Oregonian to follow the rule." The governor also called the actions absolutely unacceptable, adding the Oregon State Police Superintendent agrees with her. He also sent us a statement. It reads, "This conduct is embarrassing and indefensible, especially in the wake of thousands of Oregonians taking to the streets each day to rightfully demand police accountability." It goes on to say, like any police misconduct, the actions of a few bring discredit to the scores of dedicated officers that do not believe they are above the law they are sworn to uphold. The superintendent declined to be interviewed. A spokesperson for Oregon State Police said the trooper who placed that first order is on paid leave. While the other three are not, the incident is under investigation. Staff and